Okay, and let me just say that Michael, Rosemary, and Scott are the best customers we've ever had. And no, you can't prove I started the other classes out like that. Okay, so the first thing I want to teach you guys today is a tool that I use all the time. I mean, more and more and more, and it's called Curve Network. It's under Surfaces, and it lives right here. Are you guys familiar with that tool? A little bit? Okay. So what I'd like to do is go over, these are rules or guidelines to how the tool works, and I'll try to explain it in such a way that you understand. There's just a few relationships with how the curves work, and once you understand that, then we'll start making jewelry with those concepts. But I like to start out simple rather than just showing you an example with Curve Network, because there's several ways to run the tool, okay? So basically what Curve Network does is it defines a border, okay? And then other curves can influence the surface that's defined by that border, okay? And so the idea though is that you can set up the border and the influence several ways, okay? So let's take this green curve and let's split it. So I click split and I split it with the yellow curve, okay? And so now we have, and we'll just pick different layers so that we can see. So now we have the border split in half, and then we have these two curves, okay? Now, if we go ahead and pick this curve, and this curve, okay, and go over and hit Curve Network, you can see that where these, where this arc meets the two borders, we have the ability to change some parameters as far as that goes. But otherwise, and I'll get to these and what they mean, but there's the surface that makes, okay? And so you'll notice the way this was made is because the split was here and here, okay, the surface is being pulled down and pinched to that point. That's a given. I was expecting that, and that's what we get. This curve here is the reason that it looks the way it does here, though. And the nice thing is that if you have Rhino history on, okay, then Curve Network supports history. So if we select this curve and turn on the control points, well, then we could grab this one and this one perhaps and do this, and we can sit and manipulate that surface with just control points. So now all of a sudden we're making you know, a leaf or a heart or a this or a that. It's whatever you want. Okay? And you could also, by the way, change the border. So if we, you know, the same, to turn on the control points right here is also F10. So if you see those come on, all right. Good enough? Seems fairly, I'm just going to hit undo to get back, and there we are. Now, this tool, if you've used it, you maybe perhaps got, let me choose these a different way. So if I go here, here, and here, okay, and then hit the tool, it comes up and says select the first curve in the first direction. Ever seen that one? Rosemary says yes. Do you like that message?
Not really,
No, I don't either. As a matter of fact, I've never met anyone that can get past that message. Seriously, I've never gotten, I've clicked on curves an embarrassing amount of time trying to figure that out, and I cannot. Okay? So, if you figure it out, you know, I'll be eternally grateful. The reason that in this case, the reason that doesn't work is because this curve at the split it will not sort that. Because I believe what I think is it thinks that this and this and this is the border, okay? And therefore there's nothing to tell it to go the other way. That's my theory. And so you just don't do that. Now, I know that the minute you tell somebody not to do something, it's... now, the tricky part is, though, with this curve in the mix, you could select all of them, and then it will sort it. And you're like, well, it worked there. It's disregarding this curve. It's not. This curve is not a factor. Okay, so if I hit OK, and I grab this curve and move it, it matters not. Okay, so at least the function did us that favor. You know, it just disregarded it. But don't bank on it doing that for you. Okay, let's skip over here then. And oh, by the way, based on that, this is a real train wreck. Okay, if I have this curve and it meets at this seam, and then I have this curve and it meets at this seam, if you select this setup, you're never going to get it. All right, so there's just, I don't typically like to show what not to do, but based on what I just taught you, that one's not going to happen. So here's another way to look at this tool then. Here's our border, and then I split the influence curves, I split up at the North Pole here. All right? So if we select that and hit go, we're in good shape. All right? Now, check out how this surface was made. So whereas this one comes around to a point here, this one comes to a point here. Now, that's okay, and it all depends on what you want to do with the surface. Typically, the way I build things is that a lot of times these surfaces that I build with curved network are just a base surface for flowing geometry up onto the surface. So the rings like that Rosemary's wearing, you know, I would build the base of that ring and then get all the filigree and all the wires and whatever, you know, you guys, I'm not a jeweler, but I can fake it pretty good. So then, because to just build that with all the curves out in space is hard. So typically I get the core surface, and I think a lot of people do that, and I use Smart Flow.
Is your base there one piece or two in that example?
This is one. As a matter of fact, what's interesting is, that's a great question. Curved network will only build a surface. Now, when you say that, you're like, yeah, I see that. But there's a difference between a surface and a polysurface, right? So a polysurface is simply a surface made up of more than one surface. So poly being more than one. So this will only make a surface. And so there's no split in that. There's no exploding it. And if you want to know what, did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to make sure you weren't on to something else. If you want to know what something is, then you can come over and click this button right here, which is object information, and you know, to look up here. But there's, matrix is so old, the little tool tips didn't work right, and so we did that. But anyway, if you click this, that is a valid surface, it's a surface, and it's a NURB surface. That's all good info. Little side note, what's really funny is that command in Rhino is literally what. If you want to know what something is, you can type what whenever you want. It's like, what is that? Just type what. Okay. Now, so based on that, if we were going to put something up on this surface, let's check it out. So I'm going to go over to Transform and click on Smart Flow. Okay? Now, when you just click on Smart Flow, okay, it tells you to select the base surface. Okay? We don't have a base surface yet. And there's several ways to make one. But you'll notice that the last option here is around equals on. All right. Well, I'm going to hit escape, and I didn't have anything selected. Watch what happens if you select this and hit Smart Flow. Then it says, oh, did you want me to make the base? All right. Just wanted to make sure you guys knew that. So auto base only comes on if you tell it what to make the auto base for. It doesn't ask you, do you want me to make it? It's just the way they wrote it. So now there is the base for this object. And you can see by the shape of this, basically what's happening is, and if we turn off all the curves, so let's see here. Oops, did I click that again? And that one, and that one. If you look at this surface, you will notice that one of these ISO curves is thicker than the others. It's this one. It's pretty subtle, but you can see how light this one is and how heavy this one is. That's the seam. So if you took this piece of paper and tagged this corner right there, and then this edge is this edge, it would wrap around there like so. Okay? Now, you know, this made me think of a tool that I haven't even talked about in the other classes, but I want to see something real quick because I thought of it. Here's Unroll Surf. Let's do that. Oh no, it won't do that one. It's got a doubly curved surface. Yeah, that's why I didn't show it in the other classes.
Did you do it on the other?
There, it did it. So there's a difference between, this is my favorite icon. It's a little, sorry, Shelly, it's a cat. So here's a cat being run over because it's called Smash.
Oh.
I know, I didn't make it. I just enjoy their humor. Unroll Surface, okay, is that I'm not going to go down this road, but I was just curious. You know what's neat about this is that this is the surface area of this smashed out flat. So you could put some things on here and then get it back up there, but that's I don't want to derail us that bad. Okay, now let's take a look at this then. I'm going to go to Smart Flow, and I left there we go. Now it's all lined up. Okay, so we'll go to Solid and go to Text, and we were in Texas apparently. I've been doing Canada. All right, we'll do it as a solid. The height will be like 7 millimeters or so, and we'll say okay, and boom. Okay, so there's my point. It's all being stretched up to the top of the surface. And so, you know, as we do this, do you guys have you been using the gumball?
Yes. All day, every day.
All day, every day, yeah. Wouldn't give it up, would you?
No.
Never.
Oh.
Yeah, no, you're not the only one. Like in the last, in Toronto, a few people are like, what is that? You know? And so if you haven't been using it, I'll give you a quick demo of it here in a minute. And even if you have been using it, you may not know everything that it does.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so it's very powerful. Okay, now, yep,
Excuse me, just a minute. You said build a base.
yeah,
Which
auto.
gave that rectangle.
Mhm.
Rectangle. So why did it throw it on the dome?
Oh, the base. So that's what Smart Flow does. Smart Flow takes a flat object and you build on that, and it transposes it to whatever surface you pick.
So
And I made the base for the dome with the express interest of getting the word Canada on that dome. Yeah, I could have maybe explained that a little better, but because building Canada on a dome would be way more work than that, you know?
Work when you don't know how to use it.
I'm hoping that you get maybe more time to watch. Shelly just signed up for Netflix, so she's interested in getting done sooner, so she can watch Netflix. I know that, but it's whatever you. And I have Netflix too, so yeah. So this is how if you were gonna build that, and then anything that you do with the reason we call. The reason that we call this smart flow is, and that's this button right here, that is a GemVision tool, okay? Now, Rhino has its own version of flow, and it lives right here, and, no it doesn't.
Next row.
Which one is it?
Down a level.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, here it is. It's funny. I'm such a position guy. I knew it was here, but it was in this row. Flow along surface is the Rhino equivalent, and the only difference is that smart flow. Once you establish the relationship between these two, if you add another object, it will immediately flow. Okay? The Rhino one doesn't do that one. The Rhino one wants to know everything that's being flowed, and then it flows it. If you want to do it again, you have to reset up the whole command. Yeah. Now, the catch the other way is you only get one smart flow at a time. So if we have 3 domes and 3 flat surfaces, only one setup can be active at a time. You can bounce back and forth, but you have to reflow it. Make sense? With Rhino, you can have 50 flows and go back and still manipulate it. Does that make sense? All right. As a matter of fact, I had fun one night because I don't get out much, and I did a flow where this flowed onto there, but then something on here flowed back to here, and then it went back, and it was kind of like Inception, It was like, how many levels can, and obviously it was never going to stop. Okay. All right. Well, great. So that is going up there, that reason. Now, if you were making something, the example I use is like on your jeans where it says Levi's, and Levi's is going around it. You would want to make the surface this way so that it went around. So this is how you would do that. Now, this is going to really be hard to cast and have it live since there's a big gap there. But anyway. But yeah, so anything you do to the setup, then there we go. Now it's now we can ensure that is okay. I think we'll move on to the next example. All right. So let's say though that I don't want everything pinching up to the top, and I don't want. Well, here you can. Well, you can imagine. Can you guys imagine what would happen with this one? Let's do Smart Flow on this one. If we click this and hit Smart Flow and hit Auto Base, right? This solution is different as far as how it looks, okay? Whereas this one was definitely made by unwrapping it around this way. This one is made by taking these 2 points and pinching them there. And then this is the width of this here. And then it pinches again. But the base for a flow is always rectangular or square. It's never the shape of what it is. That's why I was messing around with smash or unroll. Okay, so let's we can just steal this text right here and move it on over here. And let's do this. And let's see what we get. Isn't that interesting? Do you see the screen doing that little jittery thing when I move? That's really interesting. I don't know. Okay. Well, this is good that this happened. It's going on. I was kind of hoping it would go this way, and I was kind of hoping it wouldn't be backwards. So let's go ahead and, if we rotate this, Okay. Let's go ahead and, okay, so Canada is now going this way. If we rotate this 90 degrees, and by the way, when you're, well, I'll have to show, I'll stop here in a minute and talk about the gumball so that you can understand what I'm doing. But basically, I'm just sitting here rotating this over here until I get what I want over here. All right? So that's, and it's truly, everything is truly backwards. And you know, one trick that you can do is you can take the base surface, oh, no, not move it, and you can rotate it. Oh my goodness. If I can hit that, there we go. Wow. I was not expecting that. I don't even know what those are. It's extra letters just for free. Okay. You guys see what I'm doing here? It's there. There's the solution. All right, well, let's talk about the gumball real quick then, shall we? The great thing about the gumball is, do you notice that I've been working this whole time and I've never left the perspective viewport? I'm sitting here moving stuff around and just dinking around, and I've never had to leave the perspective viewport, which I think is real handy. Okay, so when you, right here is where you turn on the gumball. So now it's off, so if I pick an object, no gumball. If I click this on, then there it is. So the gumball will look at an object and typically find the extent of that object and go to the center, okay? We have the Z and the Y and the X axis, and those match, you know, there's the Y here and the X here, the red line. And then if the Z axis was on, it would be yellow going up this way. Okay, and we don't turn that on in Matrix. So the arrows will translate along that axis. All right, so if I just click on an arrow, and I gotta be careful to just hit the arrow, okay? Opposite the arrow is a square. If I click that square and hold down, it is 1D scale on that axis, okay? And so there's scale there, and then scale here, all right? If you hold down Shift on any of these squares, it doesn't matter which one, okay? It'll 3D scale, all right? The next thing is these arcs. Okay, and these are rotation. So this arc revolves around the Z axis. So if I click and hold on that, I can rotate. Okay? If you hold down Shift, it'll do ortho. Okay? And you can see it's going in 45-degree increments. All right? If you click and let up, you can type in a value. Okay, oh, I want that to rotate 30 degrees. So I type 30 and hit enter. So that's true of any one of these. If you click and let up, it'll do that. If you click and let up on one of the arrows, you can type, if I type +2, it'll go up 2 millimeters. Okay, if I click and type -2, it'll go obviously down. And so, you know, towards the arrows positive, away from the arrows negative. Now, you'll notice that this arrow is yellow and this one is cyan, and over here this box is a combination of those two colors. So this yellow and cyan make a plane, and that plane is, imagine a piece of paper tucked here going this way and this way. So if I click and hold on this, it'll move only on that plane. Now here, watch. Let's get out here. So imagine the plane going right through there, but I'm going to come over here and move. See? It's not moving off that plane, no matter where I go, up or down or left or right. It's still on that plane. If you rotate around, you'll see one pop up right there. This one is cyan and red. So now it's on that plane. So if you look in the side view viewport, it's not moving off there. And then finally, to come around here, we would get red and yellow. And now we're on that plane. Make sense? Yeah. So that's how, and they just appear when you're on that plane. There you go. Okay. Now what's fun is, and I think this is great for like baguettes and stuff, you can assign you can change where the gumball is associated to the object. And we do that with the little white circle that the McNeil folks that made Rhino, they call this the bunny tail. So you don't have to, but I do. It's the bunny. So if you left click the bunny tail, okay, you can relocate the gumball. So if you click that and then look at the message, I'm going to put my origin on this corner right here. I'm going to turn this off for a minute. Okay, I want to put it right there. And then the x-axis direction will go along this way, all right? So that's the red arrow. And then the y-axis, okay, is going to go over this way. And now, when I rotate this, it rotates about that axis. Cool?
Yeah, very good.
Yeah. So I don't do that like a ton, but it's pretty handy when you can imagine if you, so let's set it up a different way. Let's say this is a baguette. We say relocate gumball. I'm going to pick the mid and then this and then this. And now I'm rotating this way or this way or this way. It's kind of fun. All right. Any questions on the gumball? My only question is why they call it gumball, but nobody answers
If you turn
that.
the gumball off and try to move in perspective, you mess everything up. Right?
Yeah. Good luck. Where am I moving that to?
Yeah.
Out in left field. Yeah. And it's okay. I mean, I still use the other viewports by all means. But now the only, the tricky part is that if we turn on the gumball, it typically when you move it, it saves what, where you put it. I say typically. Every once in a while it'll freak out and forget. But yeah. Okay. Let's, you guys, you with me so far?
Yep.
Yep. There's how we made these surfaces, and there's why they do what they do. There's another way to make this surface, though, that is real handy. And we looked at this earlier where the curve, this is the exact same setup as this one. And if you recall, where this curve comes down and meets the split is, it's not going to work. You select this setup and hit the button, and it says this. Okay, and you can start going, oh well, there's the first direction right there, and then hit enter, and it's like, oh, there's this other direction, and it's like, no, I told you, I told you it wasn't going to work. The tool says that. In messing around with this tool, I found then, okay, so if the seams are going to do that, then what if we select the base and we type 45 degrees, okay? And what if we put the seam where there is no curve? These two are now the same, by the way. I just went ahead and rotated it. So to not confuse the issue, we'll just ditch this one. Okay, so this is an interesting solution to the, now we get the A, B, C, and D around here, and when we hit OK, it makes a surface with no pinch. There's no pinch here, and there's no pinch here. And so this is really fun for, like, if you were going to do let's say a monogram on this, or anything that you didn't want this much distortion, because you can see that there's a fair amount of distortion that happens as it gets toward these pinches, right? You know, I mean, it has to. It's like physics. You can't take the word Canada and jam it in that corner without something bad happening. All right. So we picked this surface, okay, and where is it? Smart flow, auto base, and it's a pretty similar solution to this one, although it's truly like a square that's being draped over this. So you can see that based on the aspect ratio of this, we're probably going to have the least amount of distortion, right? And so we'll just do, oops, I'll do my letters. Actually, it would be, if it was a monogram, it would be that. And let's do something a little thicker there. Okay. Now here's something fairly interesting. Number one, it's an M now instead of a W, and also my K and my C didn't make it. All right. When you do smart flow, is it getting hot in here?
I'm okay, but.
How about you guys? Is it warm?
okay.
You're okay. All right. I'll just I'll be all right. I think it's because I'm talking. Yeah.
We can turn on the AC controls on the end.
Right, but I don't want to make everybody cold, so it's fine. Okay, so let's do this. I'll show you why this is what it is. Do you see the bounding box add y is 1.5, and the bounding box add x is 1.5? What that's telling us is that on the x side, this side, if we get up to 1.5 millimeters extra outside the border, and it'll still flow it up there. Okay? I am greater than 1.5 here. That's why it's not flowing either one of these. Okay? So that's, let me just do this there. Okay, so the minute that we pull these in, and we can just 1D scale it, okay, there we got the K, and if we move this over, now we got the C. Okay? Now, what I'd also like to show you, though, is why this is backwards. I just want to show you, like, we know we can grab this, and can we do that? Yeah. We can take this base and flip it around, and now it fixed it. Okay? So that's a legal move. And the reason that this is a good move, okay, is because if I mess with this surface, it'll break the history that I have where I get to turn on these, okay, and hit F10 like I showed you, okay, and I could grab these points right here and move it down, and you know, maybe I made this so it was too domey and I want to just fix it. So now history is updating that, and it's also updating the flow, which is great. Okay, but here's why that I find a lot of people don't really understand. Well, why is it always backwards or upside down or inside out? Here's why. If you go to utilities, there's this button right here called direction. All right, so let's click the surface and click direction. All right, now, the first thing that we realize is that every surface has a normal, and the normal either points in or it points out. If it points out, then it's like this table. Then the normals of this table are radiating out, so it's a table. If the normals were radiating in, we would see the back of the table. It would be inside out. It would be backwards, okay? So if I were to click on this arrow, if I left click, there's where the normals are pointing to the back side, okay? If I hit enter, it literally will flip that to the inside because I just turned it inside out. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes. All right. The other thing that's going on, the reason we had to spin this around is, let's take a look again. All right. Besides those white arrows, take a look at my cyan and red arrow here. Do they match the world? No. The red one's pointing to the left, and on the world one, I'm looking at this line, it's pointing to the right. And vice versa. This one's pointing up this way, and mine's pointing down. Well, that is the U and V reverse. All right, so if I flip this one, now the red is correct. And if I hit this one, now the cyan's correct. If they're both way out of whack, where cyan is pointing to red, that is swap UV. There, see, they're 90 degrees out. If you see that, then the first thing you do is you do that. Then you make the other two match. Does that make sense? So now when we hit enter, it's actually going to flip that upside down because, if you recall, I rotated that. Whoa, I don't know where I am now. Oh, I'm
You are dark.
oh yeah, thanks. The thing I just showed him, you mean? Okay, now, the biggest reason why I prefer to move this or rotate this base is because when you relocate these direction arrows, you break history. So now, unfortunately, if I come over and pick my blue line and move it, that surface is like, no, I'm done. You broke me. Now, you might say, how do I know that I broke history? Okay, well, here's how. If I type the word history, okay, record is yes, update is yes, broken history warning is no. So if I click yes to that, all right, now let's move one. Well, I'll tell you what, here's a good time to make sure that we're all on the same page with history. So let's do that. Okay, here's a box. If I move this box over here and tap the Alt key, see the little plus next to my cursor? I get a copy. That is not a gumball feature. That's just true. Like if I move this, before I let up on my mouse, if I tap Alt, you can get a copy. I don't know if you guys knew that, but there it is. So now if we click here, this is the parent. This was the first one that I drew. This one is a child. This one actually is a grandchild because I copied the child over here, right? So if I move the parent, I don't know if any of you guys have kids, but every time I move, my dang kids move with me. I know, they just show up. I'm like, wait, don't you people have homes? Okay. So the interesting thing is that there's that. So that's history because these are a copy or a child of the parent. So now if we move this one, the grandchild moves with it because it is an offspring of this one. But it did break history. What history did it break? The relationship between the parent and the child. That history, that relationship is broken because you moved this not from moving the parent. All right? And that's how it works. So while you're learning history, or if you're using history and it's integral to what you're doing so that you don't break it, then I suggest typing the word history and hitting enter and having this be on for a while till you understand how it's all going, right? And then as it starts to drive you insane, okay, and it constantly, see now it's not going to tell you that over and over again because this relationship is now, it's been broken. It only gets broken once. But let's hit undo. Okay, so now we're back. And then I move this one. If you're done with that, you can say, don't show this again. And now it's as if I went in and typed history and said update history equals no. Or break history warning. Okay? Now, I use history when I model all the time. And I only worry about history in certain situations like this, where I have an object, right? And I want to ensure that it gets updated as I go. Because the minute you break history, then you don't get this business going on, okay? And I want the ability to be able to change that. And so we do that. And there you go. And so it's up to you guys to make it pretty, right? So but that is a heck of a lot easier. And to my knowledge, this is the only way you're really going to get this relationship where it's not pinching somewhere, is when you make your surface that way. Okay? All right. Any questions?
That's great.
Okay, good. So let's, you might say, well, let's see, where do we want to go, Shelley? Should we? This was all good info. All right. Now, the last class, after I showed that, and then later on we started going down into where I started showing them how to use it to make jewelry, not just little puffy domes, okay? A couple of them said, man, I would have really paid more attention to that part if I, because later on when I show you how to use it in all these scenarios, so all I'm saying is, that's just the relationship that I want to show. And then you can get real creative when you start making jewelry using that core concept, though. That's all I'm saying. And so, okay. So based on what we just learned about, this is a train wreck, I don't even want to do it. Based on what we learned there then, this is the same setup. And all I did here is I made this arc kind of come out more. And this is a curve, this is a curve. There's the split in the gap, right? That's what makes this work. We select those curves and we come over to surface and we go here and it works. Everything's fine. Okay. Now, let's slow down and do that again. And let's start looking at this then. We've got loose, position, tangency, and curvature. Sounds like my sophomore year of high school in geometry class, which I did okay in. It was algebra that was my downfall. Okay, so all that's saying is where B is and where A and C and D are, the position of the surface there is that position is influencing the surface, and that's what you get. If you were to switch these to loose, then you run the risk of the surface kind of pulling away, and it relaxes the surface. Now, if you're making something real flowy and you know, it's just a shape, that's great. You know, you might want to do loose. But if you intend this to line up with some other part of your drawing, then you should do positions so that two surfaces join and meet up at the same place. Otherwise, you're just going to be chasing it later. Okay? So there's that. Now, if we have surfaces, okay, so here we have this surface and this one, okay? The edge of a surface can be a curve, all right? So when you pick, now we have to run the command first. Now it says select the curves in the network. Well, it's the edge of this surface, the edge of this one, the edge of that one, and the edge of that one, and it's this and this, okay? Now we have tangency, okay? So what that's telling us is that the surface that's made here is going to come around and it's going to go perfectly tangent into this surface, okay? Now you don't have to. You can still do position and it wouldn't be any different than this. But I'll show you why tangency is so cool, all right? So there's the result of that. Now, I'm going to show you a trick here after a while, but I selected the bottom of this object. Watch what happens when I scale the surface out. Now it's pulling away from this. Why? Because it has to stay tangent to this surface. Isn't that cool? So if you were matching something up on some other surface, there I pulled in just this side. So now it's going out this way, but in this way. And this is bowing out because it's staying tangent. We can do that. So there's what that means. So curves can only be tangent to curves. Curves don't have a direction as far as this surface goes. So that's why we hadn't been getting the tangent option when we were doing just curves, because there's no direction this way to the curve, but there certainly is to the edge of a surface, right? So there you go. Now, as time goes on, we will determine whether or not we want tangent or not to worry about it as we make surfaces. And all right, so the reason I made this object is I had a client that I was doing some work for, and it wasn't as much modeling as it was getting items ready to render for their website. Okay, so everything on their site was rendered, and they wanted it as realistic as possible because they weren't making the jewelry until somebody ordered it. You know, what Stoller would call just in time, where they hopefully make it just in time. And so that was the concept with this place. And so, you know, when you make this, as you guys well know, when you make this for production, the prongs might go up 3 times as high as what you need them because it's easier to take away metal than it is to put it back. And the bench person is going to deal with the extra metal. But it doesn't really make a very good render to show to a customer. So I made these little prong caps, and the idea is to locate this onto this object so it looks, you know, rubbed over and set and, you know, all those things that you guys are a lot better at than me. So we're going to locate this then over here. And there's a couple tools that I want to show you that go along with this, and I'm going to just load a diamond out here, or a gem. There it is right there. No big secret, right? Just gem loader. so there it is. And okay, so this is out here in left field. Okay, we can even move it, maybe it's way up here. Now, there's a function that lives right here called gem view. Okay, and it's surprising to me, just a lot of people have never clicked on this button, and I don't know why you would if you didn't know what it does, because it's just sitting here. But so notice that the gem has a QLit direction, it has a table, and so it has a very specific direction. But you can imagine how hard it would be to come up here and build a setting for this when we're at such a weird angle, right? Like there's nothing straight about this. So what this function does is when you pick a gem and you go over and hit gem view, what it does is it takes the world and it aligns the world to the gem, not the other way around. So you can see all my other geometry is like way off base, like it's just, now nothing changed. Like, everything's still where it was. All it did is it took this grid or the world construction plane and it lined it up to those objects. So the beauty of that is, or to this object, so now I'm not going to try to build something really crazy here, but let's say we just wanted some prongs on this. So I just went to the cylinder command, right? All right, and so here we can move this over and hit tab for alt, or alt for copy. All right, I'm going to show you guys another command too. So there you go. When you're done, make sure this gem is not selected. Just deselect it and go hit the button again.
Before you do that, Ken,
Oh.
notice that, in perspective, if you're just blown up in perspective, it just looks like it always does. That, that diamond is there and the prongs over in left field and we've got this other one in the corner. But if you go back to the 4 viewports, notice there's a gem in the upper right-hand corner instead of our ring. Yeah. So that's kind of signaling you that, hey, I'm still in gem view. Because when you're in perspective, you can't tell. That
you can be working away, and nothing bad will happen. It's just that you don't realize you're still in this mode. I always forget to show that, and Shelly reminds me. Maybe there's not a 4th city, so I forgot every time. But yeah, so thanks. So this is your indicator that you're in that mode. To get out of that mode, you deselect the stone that you're oriented to, and you click the button again, and it puts everybody back. And now your icon in the corner is and by the way, for some reason, because I do screen captures and I do a lot of things, I actually prefer not to have this, okay, I prefer not to have this in my viewport. I really don't need it. If for some reason you wanted to do that, you can go to View and you can say Show Viewport Ring and you can click that off. It's not a good demo though for then you'd never see the pair. If I'm in gem mode, you'd never
I
see
don't
it.
know if you guys notice, but around Halloween,
Yes,
you have
every
pumpkin.
Halloween there's the pumpkin.
I don't know if they do that anymore. But
They turned it off.
What?
They did. And the
Oh.
reason is that I remember one year, I did support for GemVision for 16 years. I was the support, either guy or manager. And one year, this a Jewish gentleman, he was not real happy with the Christmas tree,
Mm-hmm.
So that's fine. I respect that. We just, But the one that really got me was on April Fool's Day, we turned the ring upside down.
Oh.
Nothing else happens. It's just the ring for that day is upside down. Well, this dude was not happy. He's like, "You're messing with my livelihood. This is how I'm like, wow, like, I said, did anything bad happen? You know, like, and
Yeah.
I didn't say it like a smart aleck. And he goes, no, but I don't think it's funny. And I'm like, all right, it's dudes like you that ruin it for everybody. So we turned it off. It wasn't worth the bad press anymore.
Oh.
I know, I'm sorry.
What is it?
I think we did. I think it's off.
But there's also, if you can, anyways, if you watch Doctor Who, isn't it called a TARDIS?
TARDIS.
TARDIS. You can put a TARDIS in the corner if you want.
If I could find the post, if you wanted to geek out, you could literally draw your own vectors and make your own shape for that. I never did it. It was way too much. I'm like, are you kidding me? All those steps? I'm like, no. I'll just watch for the pumpkin. But yeah, we'll see. October's coming, but I think it got turned off. I'll turn mine on but there it is. But it shows up in screen captures and stuff, and I'm like, I don't need it.
Where was that turned off?
View, and then down here, show viewport ring, and then the other one is this axis down here. That I think is bad to turn off. You should definitely understand which way is X, Y, and Z. Like when that one gets turned off, I'm like, yeah, I still get it, but yeah, that's where they live. You know, maybe while we're in here, I'll show you this too. You know, you're welcome to just drag stuff out here, right? But you probably shouldn't do that because they're gone now. If you by chance accidentally close one of these main menus, it lives in the same area. So if you go to View and then Matrix Menus, that was the project manager that I turned off. So if I click it, it'll come back. Okay? If you're just hopelessly lost, and I just don't know why you do that, but you never know. If you go back to View, you can also reload all the menus right there. And they all come back. Now the cool thing is if you run multiple monitors, I've seen a lot of people, and some GemVision, like some of my support people would put the 4 viewports over on one monitor, and then they would build their menu structure over on the left monitor, or right, whichever. That's kind of cool. If you do that, and you want it to come back that way every time you start Matrix, then you would go into here, and you would say set as default, okay? So if I moved them all over the place and said set as default, when I reload Matrix, they'd come out where they're all drug around. So I guess if you guys are kind of your own show, that's no fun, but I think it would be fun to do that to a coworker that's maybe messing with you. Just move their menus around and hit set as default. Anyway, that would most likely be a support call. Okay. I guess I got kind of a mean streak between smashed cats and moving people's menus around. I didn't know I was. All right. So let's take it. All right. So don't forget about that. That tool is really handy, and I use it. You know, when I need it, it's pretty handy. The one right next to it though is one that even if you knew this one, a lot of people don't use Surface View. Well, here's what I've got. I've got my head set up here, and I just made a green surface right here. Okay, and if you say, well, how did you make the surface? Oh, there's about 10 ways, but what I did is I went to Surface and I went to Planar Curves. Okay, and I picked the edge of the surface and hit Enter, and there it is. All right, so that's how I did that one. So check this out. There's a surface, and it's on a slant, right? And so you can come over here and hit Surface View. Boop. And now everything else is crooked, and that surface right there is flat. You can see that the program still knows it's going a different way, because look at the gumball. You wouldn't want to mess with that, you know? All right. So, here we go. All right, so here's the goal then. And that is to, we want to orient this onto here. Okay, and let's keep track of these viewports now. Oh, I almost forgot, Shelly. You were patiently waiting, weren't you? Shelly gets better and better at like, check out the plane. We know we're in orient to plane now, or plane view, or what is it? Surface view? Yeah, surface view. Okay, so there you go. There's your indicator. I forget these all the time. As far as, and you can turn it off anytime. It doesn't have to be right away. Okay. Now, there's two tools. And let me see if I can teach this a little better than I did. The good news is you get two choices when you're the last stop on the tour, right? Either the tour is like sick of showing it, so it's not as good, or if like a music, like they're sick of playing the same songs over and over, or it's like so honed, like that you get the best tour, right? Because they're like, they've been practicing the whole tour. So far, I'm pretty awake, and I'm like thinking of stuff like after we taught it, I'm thinking of better ways to show you. So I hope, I don't know, maybe it's just different. All right. Over under transform is orient 2 and orient 3, okay? And what that means is that you can, with this one, you get 2 points on the object to pick from, and then you get 2 points on wherever you're putting it to pick from. Here you get 3 points to pick from, so you can do north, south, and middle or something, and you have much more control over where that object goes because you have 3 points to pick from. But there's one big caveat that makes them different enough where you have to pick. This one will scale the object between the points you pick, and this one will not because it can't, okay? Because it wouldn't be orienting in the true 3 points if it was scaling the object. All right, I'll show you. So here's the object I want to scale, and let's go orient 2, okay? Copy equals yes, so it'll leave the original. That's up to you. And scale equals 3D or 1D or no Ds. So it doesn't scale it at all. But here's 3D. Okay. The first click, I want to turn on quad. And the first click, you notice that there's a midpoint real close to it, but I actually want the quad. You see that? Right there. Because quad is the north, south, and east and west of a circle. So I don't know that my midpoint is truly a midpoint for a circle, so I'm picking quad. Make sense? Now, do you notice that my first click was here? And look what's on the left of that click, the little part that points out. My second click was here. Now we're on to the target. Where is this going? It's going over here. And if I click here and then come over to this point, that is a big prong. But see, it's scaling it between the points. Make sense? Now, if instead of clicking here first, I click over here first, which way is that prong gonna point? I just flipped it because left is right and right is left. Does that make sense? So be careful when you're using this to make sure that you keep track of your first click and your second click on the reference and then on the target. You with me? You'll see when you use it, but that's the deal. Now let's look at Orient 3. If we come over to Orient 3, reference point 1, well, let's say that is this backside right here. And let's see if we have, is there a quad there? No, it's only mid. So mid. And then my next click is the left side quad. And my last click is the right side quad. All right, now my target point, and copy is yes, is here to there. It perfectly lined it up between those clicks and did no scaling because it's not an option. Okay? So, that's how those work. What I prefer to do is not try, so now we have two ways to do this. Based on what I just showed you, okay, we could orient this head across here and have it scale it, and then we just have to line it up. Well, here, I'll do it. I'll tell you what, I'll do it both ways, and then you'll truly understand this tool. So let's do the 3-point. Okay, so Orient 3. I'll do this back one. I'll do the quad, and I'll do the quad. All right, and then we'll come over here, and here's and the beauty is, remember, this is flat now. That's why I'm in this mode. This is flat now. So I go mid, and then I come over here to quad, and then I go over here to quad. And there it did it. And I'll hit enter, and I don't think the stone's gonna fall out. Okay, so what do we have to do now, though? Now we have to go 1D scale, and we have to scale from here to here. You see where I'm clicking? And then back to, all the way back to, where's that circle live? Right there. And then, oh, now this is trickier. You can see the gumball is working in our favor, and so I can start to do this, but unfortunately, I cannot snap this. Can I snap that to? Yeah. Gumball doesn't snap to an object. You see that? It's a bummer. So, you notice that I scaled from here to that point and then scaled it in so that that matched here. But look what's also happening here. This is why 3-point is a train wreck. It lines it up perfect and it doesn't do any scaling. So we're like, I'm bagging this. This isn't the way to go, but I wanted you to understand what that's for. Okay? Let's try the other one. So here we go orient 2, and we say, okay, quad 2, quad, and then we get to come over here, and we get to go quad 2, quad. See that? Mm-hmm. All right.
But that
Now,
still looks like it would have some naked edges and things.
it's not done yet, yeah. because I didn't get a third. Now, if we could have just oriented this corner to that one with a
Yeah.
third point, it would be awesome. And the tool doesn't work that way. Okay? Now, let me back up here because I showed something in the other class, and everybody always enjoys this little trick. Do you notice when I was orienting this up there with the quad point and the quad point, I couldn't even see what I was doing. I was just kind of moving around. All right, there's a neat trick, and there's no button for this, but watch this. You can control how an object looks separate from all the other shade mode. All right, so watch. If I click this and I go set object display mode, that's a Rhino command, and like I say, I don't know of any button for that. But the command is set object display mode. I'll let you guys write that down before I go blazing
And
through it.
what menu do you find it in?
I just started typing.
Oh,
Yeah, so you just have to know the command, set object display mode. It's probably, I'm sure it's in the, well, as far as that goes, I could show you how you could find out. Since it's a Rhino command, if you hit F1, you'll bring up the Rhino help file. And if you type set object, okay, there it is right there, set object display mode command. If you double click that, where can I find this command? It's under display. It's not in menus. Okay? So it's like, it doesn't, toolbars. Yeah, it doesn't, it's nowhere. They do that. Rhino does. It's like nowhere. You'd have to call up the display toolbar, which actually no. Display. You'd have to go through there. You'd have to do that, and then it still isn't there. Display mode. Oh, there it is, right there. That's an interesting way to do it. But forget that. Just remember this command. Set object display mode, you hit enter. And when you hit enter, the mode that it currently is equals use view. Okay? So it's using the view, and the view right now is shaded, right? It's been doing that all along for you. But if you click on this word, check that out. There's all your shade modes. Well, I want it to be wireframe. So now only that object is wireframe and everybody else is as the shade mode is. Cool? So you click that and you go orient to and you go quad, and then I can perfectly see now over here, and I find quad, and then when I come over here I go quad, and now I can see because that thing isn't all shaded. It just makes that a little easier. You with me? All right. Now, if you want it back, if you're like, well, now I'm confused because it doesn't look right. Well, that's okay. You can click it, and you can do set object. And the cool thing about Rhino is that the last thing you used with the word set was that. So you'll notice it's not the alphabetical thing. Set starts with active, but it calls back the last one you did as a, because you're like, you probably wanted that one again. And now the mode is going to be use view, and I put it back so it matches everybody else. All right? So I don't do that every day, but it's kind of handy. Okay. So, now what we would do is we actually have to do, and see, we're nice and flat here, so we can kind of work on this flat if we wanted to. But the last part of this is actually rotate 3D, okay? And that lives right here. Rotate 3D. Start of the rotation axis is the quad right there. The end of the rotation axis is the quad. All right? And then, so that's where the hinge of the door is. And then this is my handle, how I swing the hinge, right? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to snap to that midpoint, right? Right up here. Where'd it go? Right there. And then I'm going to rotate that down. In theory, I'm going to snap it. Yeah. I'm going to snap that down to that. See where it's flat now? This is actually a really royal pain in the butt. If you can't tell, like I'm explaining this, so it's taken a long time, but once you know how to do this, it's like, I think this would be great to have it be a builder, you know, like, hey, put these prong caps on up here, you know? Okay. I still have one more thing to show you. But the only thing that we're missing is that it's a little too wide, isn't it? Okay. Now, ideally what we would do is we would find the center of this object right in the middle, and we would just 1D scale and pull this in. Now, what I used to do is to find the center of that, I would draw a line from here to, let's get the quad. Where's the quad at? There. All right. And let's do, there's my line I drew right there. Okay. But there's an easier way to do that. And you can see it's the center because it goes right through the X. Okay? There's a command up under Analyze, under Mass Properties, and there's Area Centroid and Volume Centroid. Now, check it out. Actually, you can just use Volume Centroid. We don't need to do area. So if we take this disk and go to Analyze, Mass Properties, and go to Volume Centroid. Oh yeah, okay, well this is true. Would you like to continue? You can say yes. The reason that, oh no, you know what? Like I said, I need to show you both area and volume. A volume is a solid, right? It has to have a volume, and that's why I thought it was going to just put a dot there anyway. But watch area centroid. It finds the center of that area and puts a dot right there. Okay? Now, the cool thing is if you're over here making like pendants and stuff, and let's say that you have a pendant like this, right? And you want to know where to hang the bail, you can come over to Analyze, Mass Properties, Volume Centroid, okay? And in this case, it's real easy. It puts a dot right there. But then you can move that dot straight up, you know? And there's where that thing's going to hang correctly, okay? And so Just keep that in mind, volume centroid. Now, don't be fooled though. If it's some shape where, like it's me, my figure, and I'm like this, you know, it's not going to find the center of gravity. It's going to find the center of the volume. But if your part is fairly symmetrical, then the center of the volume is the center of gravity. And it works for, like I say, it works for pendants and stuff. Are we good? All right. So let's finish this up. But the reason I like to show this demo is I can show you about 10 tools and how they work on just this little deal here. So if we pick this, now we know the center of that object. And we can do 1D scale, which is transform 1D scale. And we got to make sure that we turn the point O snap on. And so we go, here's that. And then there's the midpoint. And then there's the other one. And we're good to go. Yay! We earned it, didn't we? But it's all lined up. Now, are you guys using Control F1 and Control F2?
Sometimes.
Haven't heard of it, maybe? There's a lot of people
Guess
haven't
not.
heard of it. No? Yeah, guess not. Yeah, the answer is no. So, if I have this object on the right side, Control F1 mirrors across this axis. Okay? And so guess what Control F2 does? It mirrors across the red axis. So that is a time. Now, it only works off of the center. It only works off the center, not out here somewhere. Okay? Control F1. So you have to, it depends on what viewport. Oh, we're still in this mode, aren't we? We done with this mode? Make sure nothing's selected. Click Surface View, and now we're back. Everything's back the way it was. Now, what's fun is basically right before I came on this trip, went ahead and wrote my own script for Control F3, and it does a quad for you. I know. So that's kind of fun. How we doing time-wise? Hour and 22. I'll tell you what. Let's. This is on Central Time. Should we? This is a good spot to take a break, and I'm trying to keep my videos down, so I'm gonna hit